and welcome to episode 146 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris in the rain, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up at the night sky, and this podcast is for anyone else who likes going out under the stars. Just as I hit record here, Shane, a very large downpour just started about, I guess it's about 10 o'clock now on Sunday morning.
Well, yeah, like you're a little ways away from me right now, and it's been raining here for, I don't know, the better part of an hour. Pretty good soaker today. In fact, it's been kind of wet a lot lately, which is really good, I think. It's been so dry. The timing for the farmers is not very good. They're trying to harvest everything, but in general, some moisture, I think, is good.
Yeah. And in order to get a good signal, I have to record with my door open out here. So not that it matters that much, because even when the door is shut, I think I still got my hand out. So yeah, we're having some pretty good rains. It's unfortunate we didn't get this in June. Hey, like if we had gotten this in June, it wouldn't have impacted any of the astronomy, and the farmers would have really had a game changer. But yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, exactly. A month ago, this would have been, I think, a good rain for everybody, but not so much right now. I think though I think it's hitting some of the areas that were burning, some of the forest fire areas. So that's also good. Hopefully that stuff can get under control a little bit better. Yeah,
there is that. Yeah, for sure. So did you get out and, we did have a rather dismal week for astronomy, but I echo your comments. It is good to see some rain coming down. Were you able to get out and see anything at all?
Well, last night wasn't too bad for a little while. Now, I didn't take a telescope out last night. It was actually my wedding anniversary, so I was spending time with my wife. But we were in the backyard pretty much the whole evening until about, I'd say 9:30, 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And, our skies were pretty clear and very transparent, except there were some clouds floating by, so they got in the way a little bit. But I was doing some visual astronomy, just looking at the constellations. The moon looked phenomenal naked eye last night. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but sometimes I struggle to see some of the variations with the darker gray areas. It almost looks like one sort of palette or one sort of shade. Whereas last night it was variations of the I guess the shading or the darkness of the gray areas. I even felt like some of the topography was almost starting to become visible. Like it just seemed to like photo-esque naked eye, which I don't know if I've ever seen it look that good before naked eye. So that was kind of neat. And then the other thing is I sent you a picture of some new binoculars, binoculars, but new to me. So what they are Bushnell broad fields, and some people would call them opera glasses. Other people call them miniature binoculars, but they're just tiny. They're 6x25s. They fit in the palm of your hand, and they fold up into almost nothing too. They're very compact. What is intriguing about these Bushnell broad fields is they have an 11-degree field of view, which is quite wide, as you and I have talked about lots in the past. 25 millimeter objectives is a little light or a little small for astronomical purposes. But what kind of frustrates me is you read about binocular use for astronomy, and a lot of people pan 6x25s or basically probably just about anything under 35 millimeter. A lot of people say it's not enough aperture for astronomy. The light gathering isn't that great. But it's all relative. It's not great compared to 7x50s, but it's way better than what my eyes can do. And 6x25s will show you more of the sky than you can see with your eyes. And to me, that's awesome. So what else is? I'm kind of going off in a whole bunch of directions here. I've always wanted these Bushnells. I love the looks of them. Like these old miniature binoculars are almost like an exoskeleton. It's like they're missing the body of the binoculars. So you can.
Yeah, they're really weird looking. It looks like they just took the prisms and some eyepieces and then just sort of held them in place and then coated the area in between with aluminum or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like it is a really unique design. Maybe one that would be more familiar with listeners could be the Nikon Micron binoculars. Nikon made this model called the Micron, and I think they released them in like 1917 or the earlier 1900s. And like it's the exact design of these Bushnell broadfields. And then Nikon re-released the Microns just within the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. What's that?
They're like $300 Canadian.
They're very expensive. Yeah, the new Nikons are really expensive, and they're only, I think, like an 8-degree field of view. And I also think they're 6x15s. Like they're even smaller than mine. So
yeah, I'm looking at. There's one here 7x15. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Yep.
Nuts.
Yeah. So the Bushnell broadfields are very well regarded. If you read through Cloudy Nights about miniature binoculars, a number of folks say that the Bushnell broadfields are kind of upper echelon, and they were made by how do you pronounce it? Acai, maybe.
That's how I would say it. Acai.
Yeah. Basically, it's Pentex, the Pentex Corporation. And as such, the optics are quite good. Eye relief on these things is terrible. I would say no more than 10 millimeters, maybe even a little bit less. I definitely had to get my eyes, like the eyelashes were brushing the lens when I would blink if I wanted to see the entire 11-degree field of view. But as far as these old wide field binos go, I think you and I, Chris, have the same sort of love and hate for them. And the hate is that the field just isn't good on the edges. In fact, it deteriorates quite a bit, on the outer 30-ish%, depending on the quality of the set you got. Yeah. These Bushnells, they do break down at the edge, but I would say it's less than usual. Like the other wide fields that you and I have used, these are far better on the edges. Like I'd say maybe the outer 15 to 20% is quite degraded, with the rest of it being pretty decent. Yeah. And the other thing that really stands out about these is how heavy they are. You would think something that fits in your hand wouldn't weigh much at all, but these things must be built like to survive a bomb blast, because man, they are heavy. Yeah, at least heavy for their size. Like they're actually quite comfortable to still hold up and use. So anyway, yeah, I gave them a little bit of a spin last night, and I was pleased with them. I'm not sure how much I'll use them. I just love the aesthetics of them. It's almost more of like put it, in the bookshelf beside the books for, a little, I don't know, decor enhancement. But
so what does your spouse think of your home decorating stylings?
Well,
I thought this house could use another telescope. Really, I did.
Yeah.
I was just doing it. I was doing it for the decor, not for my astronomical purposes.
Well, I did show Jess a picture of some Burlap tripods, because the tripod that I'm using is just like an aluminum Manfrotto tripod, and I said, these Burlap look really nice, and she agreed. She actually would prefer the nice wooden tripod to be out in the main room rather than my aluminum photographic tripod.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something to that. I can start selling future purchases as decor upgrades.
Yeah, once you get into the really expensive stuff, things actually start looking good.
Yeah. So for anybody that's interested in seeing what these Bushnell broadfields look like, I did tweet out a picture. So we are at Actual Astronomy on Twitter. You can see it there, or if you just do an internet search for Bushnell broadfields or miniature binoculars, you'll find them. Maybe another couple points I'll talk about with these things that's kind of unique as well is, most binoculars have a central focus wheel, and you just rack that back and forth to achieve your focus. And then one of the one of the eyepieces will have a diopter adjustment to compensate for the difference in our eyes. These things do not have a central focuser. You focus, like basically both eyepieces have a diopter adjustment or a focus adjustment. So you focus them independently. And a lot of these older miniature binoculars are like that, although some do have a central focus.
Yeah.
Although one of the eyepiece on the left-hand side, like they I don't know what kind of grease they used in these things, but over time, like these things are probably 50, 60 years old. Over time, that grease really just turns into cement. And I cannot rotate the left eyepiece diopter adjustment. I basically have to unscrew it or screw it into the body of the binocular to achieve focus. And there's an interesting website. It's miniaturebinoculars.com. And it's yeah, this is a rabbit hole that I've gone down, Chris. It's a lot going on here. Miniaturebinoculars.com. And anyway, what a lot of this is like a giant database of all of the serial numbers and models of these things that have been made. Actually, maybe it's not miniature. I'm trying to find. I'll find it. But they have instructions on how to correct like this kind of cement issue that I have. So, it is miniaturebinoculars.com. And anyway, if anybody's interested in these miniature binoculars, that website is a great resource. There's all sorts of photos. There is I don't know how many there are, but there's hundreds, maybe even thousands of these little miniature binoculars out there, in terms of differences of size, of make, of magnification. So it's kind of a neat thing. If you're into binoculars, they're sort of unique. So check it out.
Well, if you like those, then you should try the ones I can't remember the name of them, but I think there's a Nikon 8x30 or something, or 8x32 that can be found for a few $100, and it's supposed to be pretty alpha. And then there's the ultimate, which is the COMZ, KOMZ or Z, and it's a 6x24. That apparently is the best one in these sort of 30 or 20 odd to 30 odd millimeter range is the KOMZ 6x24. I'd always wanted to look through a pair, but again, because like I can't wear glasses when you can't wear glasses when you use these binoculars. And when I take my glasses off and look through binoculars, I might as well be looking through a couple, what do you call them? Those fun things you have when you're a kid, and you would turn it and it would have all kinds of weird and wacky patterns and designs. It's kind of like one of those.
A kaleidoscope?
That's right. Like looking through a couple of kaleidoscopes almost. So,
yeah.
But you must not suffer as badly as I do.
No, my astigmatism is like my left eye is really good. I don't think I really have any astigmatism there. My right eye does have the astigmatism, but it's not too bad, and I can typically just deal with it. What I am really sensitive to is like edge of field distortion or chromatic aberration. It just drives me nuts. And some people are they don't see it, or they're just not as sensitive to that part of the optics. But comms are Russian, I think, aren't they? They're Russian made binocular. Yeah. So
they're supposed to be something else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think comms is well regarded in general for their binos. I think that they're quite. They make good optics anyway.
Yeah. I have a Russian telescope. I got to get up and running at some point. I have a Santel 150 millimeter, like a 6-inch, and it's a beautiful telescope, just sitting sealed in a case in my house. I got to get that running at some point now. I used to use it a long time ago. Beautiful planetary images through it.
Is it a Mac, like a Maxuto?
Yeah, it's I think it's a Rumach Maxuto. Yeah. So it's got the secondary, but unlike most of the mass-produced ones you see now, it's not a mirror. It's not like a spot in the meniscus that they've just sort of either glued on or polished up or whatever. It's actually more like a Schmidt Cassegrain, where it's a separate secondary. And what they do, my understanding is with these ones, they use the tool that was used to grind out the primary as the corrector, so it's perfectly matched.
Oh, wow.
And then there's some sort of magic with the secondary mirror itself. But yeah, the images, I mean, yeah, it really is just like a 4-inch apochromatic telescope, maybe even just a scooch better, except the cool down is just a real pain because it's a closed system. You know, you've got that sort of bottle of water effect where, you know, if you take the bottle of water and you leave it in your hot car all day, and then you go and reach for it at midnight or whatever, and you know, you bring it out into the outside. I mean, you know, the bottle of water will seem so much warmer than the outside, and that's kind of what happens with these closed tube telescopes. And where we have such a large temperature delta, big difference between daytime highs and nighttime lows. Last weekend, we were 38 degrees, maybe close to 40 degrees above, and we went to 7 or 8 degrees by the time I went to bed, and we were packing up the scopes. So closed tube systems really struggle in that. And you know, nothing wrong with the systems. Like it can be perfect optically, but when it's closed like that, it's really, really a challenge to get them to catch up.
Yeah. I've owned a 5-inch, and I think I owned a 6-inch. Yeah, it was a 150 Maksutov, both Skywatchers, and I could never really get them to acclimatize. And as such, I sold them. It just takes too long or for me anyway. And part of it was I had them in my observatory when I used to have the observatory, and it just got too hot in there during the day. And then, you know, like if it was 30 degrees outside, it would be 40 degrees inside of the observatory. And the telescope just never could recover really from that. It had a hard time cooling off. I know you can get cooling systems or, like, you know, fans that sort of circulate air to expedite the cooling of these closed systems, but I never went down that path.
Yeah. And I've seen my friend Randall, who's been on the show before, he did his 5-inch that he bought with, it's like almost like that reflective wrap that you use to put in the windscreen of your car when you leave it on a hot day. He did something with that and said he had pretty good success. But he's in a major city, and that city, which I used to live near, doesn't have the as large swings as we do. So I think he's only probably working with maybe 10 or at most 15 degree temperature swings. And we're double that on any day. We're 20 to 30. Here comes the train. You can hear the train coming by in the distance.
Nothing coming through yet.
Nothing coming through yet. Yeah, it doesn't get too close. It's several miles away, but there's not much out here. It's very quiet. We were surprised when we woke up the first Sunday morning, and we could hear the train. I was like, "Whoa, man! It's like a few miles from here." Anyway, that's as loud as it gets. So if you didn't hear that, it won't be heard. Yeah. So the only thing I saw this week was the moon and Jupiter. Last night, it totally cleared out here. So where this spot is, one of the reasons why I wanted to get a spot out here is that this spot here tends to clear out at night. I don't know why. Something to do with the topography, but it can be just a little bit clearer here than in other spots. And it did totally clear out. But yeah, I didn't go out. I'm still kind of recovering from last week, and this was my first week back in the office after 20 months of not being in the office. So there was that, and first week back there where we're then trying to get out here, and so we had packed up on Thursday night, and I was all ready to come out here right after work on Friday, and I get notification that I have a package arriving. So my Telegizmos 365 scope cover that I ordered last month, it arrived. So, nice. It's here now. Not really, in a way, this is not an exciting item, because it's not like, a pair of binoculars, or you're not going to look through it. But I'm really hoping it becomes a game changer so that I can, like I said, I want to get out here. I want to, I don't know about setting up an observatory. That's the one thing I think that most people jump right to when they think about getting a spot to do astronomy. And this place is kind of dual purpose, like a place for us to get away on the weekends. And it has an adjoining section of land that was also with this parcel that is, I think, perfect for doing astronomy. And but I don't know. I don't know about setting up a permanent observatory. Maybe at some point. But I want to be really careful. Like you said, you get into heat issues. I know a lot of people get into a lot of other challenges with them, and I really just want to observe. So my initial plan is to be able to come out, set up a scope, and throw the cover over it. And heck, like in the autumn or other times of year, I might even be able to just stay out overnight here if I'm observing or want to see something in the morning, and just get up and drive into work, because work is actually closer to this place than it is to my house. So it's like 10 minutes closer to get to work from here than it is to get back home from here. But anyway, so I'm pretty excited about getting one of these Telegizmo 365 covers. You had one for your 12-inch, I think.
Yeah. In fact, I still have.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have the Telegizmo for the 12-inch, and I still have it. It like I can kind of use it with a refractor on a tripod as well. I just need to use a little bit of bungee cords around it to tighten it up where it's a little bit big. Yeah, they work great. I love them.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that and trying it out, and like I said, being able to come out here even if the weather isn't great. If it looks like it's going to clear off, then get a scope up, throw the cover on it, go to bed, get up at 3 o'clock and do some observing, or be able to have it set up for sort of multiple days in a row. That's my hope with it. Hopefully that works.
Yeah, for sure. I agree too with not being too concerned about an observatory. In my experience, there's only really two reasons to have one. Number one is if you're using a mount that requires like polar alignment. Then it's nice to just have the mount aligned all of the time, and you don't have to go through that process. And then the other would be if you have just a giant telescope, like one that you don't want to have to set up and take down all of the time. That's another good reason for them. But for the way you and I typically observe with smaller telescopes that you can easily lift and move around, and manual driven telescopes, there's just no real need for the observatory. I guess there is one more reason that does provide a lot of value to us, you and me, is the wind protection, because we often have wind in this province, and it is nice to have the protection of the observatory, so you're not getting as cold as quickly with a breeze that's passing through.
Yeah, and I was looking at one of the there's a 7-inch one of those old Meade ED Appos up on the auction site today, and I was like, if I get that, then I would need an observatory.
Yeah. Well, there's a 6-inch Skywatcher Evo or whatever it is. On astrobuysell.com for quite a good price. And I've been sort of loosely thinking about a 6-inch refractor for dark skies. I think it would be quite nice. You could. I have plans for semi-permanent wooden piers that you can stake into the ground. I got lots of spots here to put that kind of rig up. You're more than welcome. And I'll even look through it when you're not around to keep it company. Yeah, perfect. You're such a good friend.
Let's see. Oh, and I heard from Stefan over at Astronomy Plus, and I'd ordered a Celestron power tank and a Teleview 3x Barlow in the end of April or beginning of May. And they're finally coming.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. Better late than never.
Holy cow. Yeah. I mean, it's, I'm not knocking him. It's, there's been just a run on Astro gear and other items like nobody's ever seen before.
Mm-hmm. I'm still waiting for my Bino viewer from Bader. Like there's no update as to when it will be here. And I ordered that in May. So we're going on 3 months here. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of writing off this year. Like I guess it'll probably be a next year toy that I get to play with.
Yeah. Well, as well, like we're getting, like, once we get through this, I'm really hoping that the rain, ceasing, the rain finally coming to an end, fingers crossed, will be when we start to get clear skies again. Mm-hmm. And, I gotta, start planning for that and getting set up here. And, hopefully we can start coming out, like even on weeknights or whatever. It's only a 40 or so minute run out here. It's not a big deal. And, it's nice and dark. I mean, 6th magnitude skies. And then I did test out the heating. I ran that yesterday for the first time because it was only 13 degrees. And yeah, I mean, if it's 9 or 10 degrees out, running one heater in here was overkill almost. Like, so we should be okay, down to some pretty good negative 10, negative 12 temperatures to be able to come in and get warm, make a cup of tea, that kind of stuff. So all set up for that.
Nice.
Bring your own water.
Yep, fair enough. I always do. So I have a new telescope coming, actually.
What?
Yeah, I know. So I've always been intrigued by, well, obviously little telescopes, but in particular, Takahashi made an FC50, fluorite 50 millimeter. You're well aware of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've longingly looked at those. You've got one coming, do you?
I do not.
Oh,
but the story goes on from there.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, I know. I still would love to have an FC50, and if at some point I have an opportunity to purchase one, I may do it. But an alternative to that is Borg made a 50 FL, which is kind of like the 90 FL in terms of
which one? Are you getting the 8 or the 10? The F8 or the F10?
F8, I believe, is what this one is. Yeah.
You can do an amazing thing with that telescope.
Oh yeah. Well, what's that?
Oh, I'll send you the link. So I was looking at getting one around the same time we ended up purchasing this place, and so my funds are otherwise dispersed.
Yep.
But there's a focal reducer that you can get for that telescope. Okay. That will give you, I think it takes you down to F3 or F4. I got the link somewhere. Anyway, and it will give you a beautiful flat wide field of view. It's actually designed for the 71 FL, but it's designed more for the focal length than it is for the telescope. And the 71 FL is 400 millimeters. And of course, 50 millimeter F8 is also 400 millimeters. Mm-hmm. So I don't know of anybody who's tried it, but that's how the lenses are designed. So it will work in that telescope, and it has the right threads, the right thread capability for it. And I did write a guy who was using it in the 71, and he said that 100% it will work with the 50. So it's actually in a Cloudy Nights thread from June or May or something like that. So you can look up 50 FL, and you can see my great excitement because I was looking at them for a long time too. Sorry, I'm sidetracking your your bit here, but that 50 FL is, I mean, that's probably one of the best little telescopes. I actually think that that's a better option than the TAC 50 FC, because you can use your 2-inch eyepieces and a lot of the accessories that we have for the mini Borgs with that. And you should be able to use this focal reducer and still come to focus with those eyepieces. And that will be just absolutely a deadly combination. Like I said, I forget what it is, but I think it takes you down to F5 point something. It might be 5.5 or 5.7 or something like, could be 5.3. Anyway, it's sort of like the mid fives. So, but yeah, it gives you this huge, very flat field of view, because with the mini Borgs, they're pretty good. They're pretty good on edge. And you were saying you're sensitive to edge curvature, any kind of edge aberration. Yep. And this will give basically give you a 50 millimeter Petzl. Basically, I mean, not even basically, I mean, essentially that's going to be the design of it, right? So, and nobody's ever done it before. So, but I was speccing it out. It's not inexpensive, but you know, you can do it. I think this is what to do with that telescope. Sorry, but when does it come? Where did you get it? Did you buy it from Japan?
Yeah. Got it on Buy EE for a pretty good price. I think it was about 250 Canadian, which
That is.
Yeah. So, one of the key things here was, like you said, we have all of the pieces already because of the Mini Borg 50. So,
Yeah.
I have a lot of components that I can, make this other thing work. There's a good review of this little telescope on scopeviews.co.uk.
Yeah.
And,
Roger Vine.
Yeah. And he talks about like the FC50 and comparing the two telescopes. And what's quite interesting is the air gap in the Borg, which really, allows them to fine tune the optics and make sure that this thing is like tip top. So I've been so impressed with how our little mini Borgs perform. I kind of thought, having an F8 fluorite version of this would be incredible. And just every review I read of this little telescope is outstanding. So yeah, I'm really excited to receive it. I'm hoping it comes this coming week or weekend. Probably like within the next 7 days, I should have this thing and start to play around with it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I struggled with is that I have the 60 fluoride, and it's F9 or F5.9, and it's really hard to then justify having whatever it is, 315 or 320 millimeter focal length, 50 millimeter, once you do all this fancy stuff to it. Because the Takahashi 60 at f5.9, to me, it looks flat. So, but I would love to run them side by side. I think that would just be really quite tickling to be able to go back and forth between those two telescopes and then really see which one is sort of what I would prefer. Because I mean, geez, I might even sell my TAC 60 if I like the 50. But yeah, you need to get the focal reducer for it. But there is one that will work visually, right? So that's the challenge. Most focal reducers won't work properly in a visual configuration, but there is only one, and they frequently come up used as well. So you're not paying $500 if you're into like the 3-ish range. Yeah.
And you said it's a focal reducer for this 71 millimeter?
Yeah. It works on the 71 and the 90. And then if you actually get the part number and you look it up, and you can find it if you just search for Borg on Clyde Knight's Refractor Forum, or you can just go through my posts, and it's probably the last post I made because I don't post there very often. So, and it's sometime in the past, like I said, May or June. And then, because I was just reading through, and like, I'm not really that engaged in posting online. And I was just like, oh, there's a Borg thread. I'll just read that. I was just bored one day a couple months ago, and I started reading, and I'm like, wait, hold the phone. This guy found a focal reducer that works visually for the Borgs. Like, how does that work? So anyway, but it's only going to work with those 3 telescopes, right? And then you can actually go onto the Borg site. So I was like, well, what does Borg actually say about it? And they have photos that people were using the 50 FL to take beautiful photos, like flat field photos, and do comparisons with the focal reducer and without, with the 50 FL. So Borg is actually like not saying it's for the 50 FL, but their demo photos were from the 50 FL. So there you go. I mean, it works with it. And as you know, with these mini Borgs, you can control your tube length of your telescope to guarantee that you can get that light cone focused at your eye. Unlike most telescopes, you throw a focal reducer in there, it's a crapshoot whether or not you'd be able to see the light cone. But chances are it's not going to work because the light cone and astrophotography works very different than when you're trying to use diagonals and telescopes visually. But this one, you can do it. It will work absolutely.
Well, I will have to look for this thing then. That's intriguing. I wasn't aware of that potential. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that telescope has a lot of potential locked up in it. A lot.
Yeah, I kind of think it'll be the ultimate travel scope. I give up obviously a little bit. Well, with this reducer, I guess I wouldn't really give up any of the wide field over the mini Borg 50, the Acromat. But even without the reducer, I think it'll be an outstanding little telescope. I think it'll work quite well.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, maybe you won't want to. I just think, considering all the parts from Borg that you have, all that you need to do is get this reducer, and you'd have like a mini Petzl. I mean, it would be such a ridiculously good little telescope. And like you say, I think it ends up being just a little bit longer. I think it ends up closer to like 300 millimeter focal length than the 250 we have now. Maybe it's even as short as 270. But regardless, yeah, it's somewhere between 250 and 300. So it's not going to be much longer, but it's just a scooch longer focal length, which actually will make it easier to make sure that you can get eyepieces to come to focus. But yeah, I think it would just be a deadly wide field little telescope. Just should be beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for this now, or more excited than I was.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited because I was right on the buying path to get one of these, because I have loved the little 50 so much. So what are you going to do with your mini board now?
Well, originally my plan was just to keep it, run it as like my rich field little telescope. Plus, it really does convert quite nicely into a finder scope, especially with that short focal length and the light weight of it. So no plans to sell it right now. Now that you've told me though about this reducer potential, I guess I would, if I can find one, see how that works and the weight of it and everything. And if the mini Borg 50, the achromatic version, if it becomes redundant in the collection, then I would probably just sell it. And
and you should be able to get a pretty good price on this focal reducer, because it was designed I think it was designed a number of years ago, and it's not quite as optimal for digital imaging, apparently. Like it's very good, I guess, but it's not as good as like the latest and the greatest. So a lot of the time people are just selling theirs off in order to buy the newer, fancier digital version, which won't work visually, by the way. So you need to get this particular one that we talk about in that thread. But there you go. Yeah, I'm really excited now. So yeah, we'll have to get that out here and then get my 60 and one of the mini Borgs. And then we can sort of have the ultimate small scope shootout.
Yeah. Well, I think one scope that's going to leave the stable is I have a little Zeiss 50 millimeter by 540 focal length.
Yeah.
It's another achromatic telescope, and it's phenomenal optics. In fact, I've had some incredible views of the moon through that telescope, but how many 50 millimeters does one person really need to own? So I think that one will be a victim of this purchase.
Yeah, well, I think this Borg 50 really is the ultimate scope. I think you have the Takahashi pedigree in the customization of the Borg system, and I think that's it. I mean, I don't think there's a better one out there. The reviews are spectacular, and it seems to also be infinitely customizable, like the other mini Borgs, meaning that you can use it in a variety of configurations. You can also use it. I mean, you do a little bit of astrophotography. It would be really cool if you then modded it to work on your tracking mount to even take photos, because then you'd have like a mini planetary instrument at f8. You can put an extender on there for like f14. You can run a focal reducer on it for a super wide field instrument, and then it's a little Petzl as well. In that configuration, you could attach your camera to it. I know there's a lot of different adapters for that. So it's like a 4-in-1 telescope. It really is like the ultimate mini telescope that pretty much will still fit in a long coat pocket,
Well, yeah. And so, Borg has the 50 FL, which is, basically, the re-release of the TAC FC50, but with a slight, I maybe would call it improvement on the prescription. And then Borg basically did the same thing with the 90 FL. But the copy there was the the Takahashi Sky 90. And, So like the optics are made by the same company. Like I believe Takahashi and Borg both get their glass made by Canon. So you're really getting some good performance, and like so this Borg 50 FL was 250 Canadian. The FC50, the TAC, that often, like, I don't know if I've seen one that's in good condition go for under 500 Canadian dollars. So like you're getting a cheaper telescope too, which performs just as well and probably has more potential because of the modularity of the Borg stuff.
Yeah. So, and it's newer. It has newer coatings. I mean, the coatings are new enough that it's, you wouldn't notice a difference in the coatings between those coatings and the absolute most current coatings. There just wouldn't be a visual difference. So, but with the FC50, the old one, I mean, those are decently old telescopes. So you're going to have a coating difference. And then, it's going to be a heavier little telescope, the FC50 versus the Borg FL, which is that's going to be the most portable 50 millimeter you can get. And I think the most adaptable 50 millimeter you can get. I've never heard or seen one since.
Yeah, I'm super excited to get it. So I'll send some pics when it comes in.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited about that. So I got one more thing to add to this podcast, which I didn't put in the notes.
Ooh, a surprise.
So I got the recent copy of Sky News magazine, which is the Canadian, and I have it here. Sorry if my sound blanked out. I just moved it in front of my monitor. The Sky News magazine, which is Canada's astronomy magazine. And so I don't want to say I was critical. I wasn't really critical. I never voiced my opinion, but they have changed the appearance of the magazine. And thumbs up for that. I really like the new appearance. I think it's awesome because they've just reduced the font size and everything to really display people's astrophotos. And they put an astrophoto of one of my most favorite regions, the Aurora-Ophiuchi region. Although it's, it looks pretty good. And then inside on page number 7 is our friend Kathleen. And she made a dress and a hat. And the hat is the solar system. And the dress is all kinds of her astronomical sketches during the pandemic on it. It's
really? Oh, yes. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know that Kathleen had some stuff in there, some content. So I'll definitely check that out. I as well, I noticed the difference in the magazine. Like the paper quality is better. Like it's they definitely made some improvements, and I like it. And if anybody is into astrophotography, this current edition of Sky News is like everything you would ever want to know about astrophotography. The how to do it, your workflows, different gear based on your budget. Like it's pretty comprehensive guide to astrophotography. And the other thing that's really cool in this edition is there's a section on total solar eclipses, because we have one here in North America coming in 2024. It kind of gives you your checklist and like the timing of your preparations if you want to observe that. So for anybody that is interested in seeing the 2024 solar eclipse here in North America, it's not a bad magazine to pick up, because like some of your preparations should start now for 2024. And it walks you through all of that stuff. So I don't think I'll say any more about it other than it's there if you're interested. Hats off Alendria, who is our editor in chief or chief editor. I can't remember which. I've done some stuff with her in the past, and she's great to work with. And so I can definitely see her influence in this. The way the magazine's starting to come together. It's been a bit of work in progress here the past few years. So kind of credit where credit's due. Looks really good. So with that, there we go. 45 minutes. We had some listener contact, but I think maybe we can save that for next week. We can't necessarily get to those every week, but there's some interesting contact from Charlie, Corey, and Phil that we'll touch on next week. Yeah, that sounds good, Chris.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Shane. Do you have anything left to add?
No, that's everything for me.
All right. Well, with that, we'll thank everybody else for listening, and I will end the recording.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.